I want to go back to your career and how you started in advertising, your background. You're not a Jackson native, but you make Jackson your home. Tell us a little bit about your past, Steve.
Well, I was rudderless and dropped out of college and didn't know what to do. And there was a beautiful young woman from Atlanta, and I said, I'll go chase her for a while. And I did, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And I read a book by Jerry Della Femina called From Those Wonderful Folks Who Brought You Pearl Harbor. And it was about advertising and the creative side. And I said, gosh, this sounds like fun. I was totally ill-equipped for it. But I went and applied for a job with a company called the Creative Department Incorporated. And
In Atlanta?
yes.
Okay.
And I was very lucky. I got hired, $100 a week. The first thing I was doing was trying to sell Gulfstream II aircrafts at 4 to 6 million, making 100 a week living in the slums of Atlanta. But it was fun. And I got to start running with a crazy crowd, Hugh Wilson, Johnny Chappelle, Bill Dial. And they asked me to go to California with them to start on this television pilot that they had called WKRP in Cincinnati.
I recognize the names, yeah.
And I was chicken, and I said no. I stayed in Atlanta. I did some work with Ted Turner. Started working on national business.
Okay, let me back up. Do you regret not working with you and Bill? Because to me, that was one of primetime television's high points. Wonderful program.
No, I was about 22 years old, and heaven only knows what kind of trouble I could have gotten into at Hollywood, especially with a bunch of crazies. And those guys are. They were great guys.
Yeah.
They're all nuts.
Yeah.
And I really don't regret it. I've had opportunities. I was here, I came over here 35 years ago. And I'd been here about 4 years, and I got called by Kenyon and Eckert, an old agency in Detroit. And they wanted me to come up. Chrysler was in trouble, and that was their key account. And I knew that my major job was going to be writing for Lee Iacocca. I figured Iacocca couldn't turn it around, and the last thing I wanted to do was be on the beach in Detroit. So I stayed here. And it's been a situation. I've had any number of opportunities to move out. But whenever one of those has come, I've been in the middle of a project that I can't drop and leave a client in the lurch. When I've been trying to get out, I can't get bus ticket to Pearl. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, it's just...
Well, advertising then, you got out of it.
Mhm.
Why?
There's not much of it left. The advertising business, the business of good advertising is dying. There's a lot of advertising still being done, and most of it's pretty fifth rate. And
Why is that, Steve? Is it a cultural decline, or is it the fact that the minds aren't as bright, or a combination of the two?
it's all of that, Jack, and a lot more. I think most advertising ultimately fails. I think the reason most of the time it fails is a client starts talking to himself instead of his market in his advertising. And, you know, that's the kiss of death. But there's so much of it, the public turns off. You've got TiVo, which is killing television advertising. And television is killing itself by the volume of spots. The remote control has killed television advertising.
But advertising itself will never totally go away.
Oh, no.
Will it?
No. I thought the most interesting thing to happen in advertising in a long time was this year in the Super Bowl, a 1-second commercial for Miller High Life. And I noticed it.
Well, and you say that advertising is dying. I'm wondering if the traditional forms are dying and these new forms are coming into play. For example, and I may have mentioned this on the air a couple of weeks ago, I was at a Kroger recently with my daughter, and I happened to look down at the conveyor belt, you know, on which you place your groceries, and there were ads, Steve, on the belt. And I thought, can you not escape?
No, you can't.
You know, and of course, when we were growing up, your football stadiums were, you know, the Metrodome or you know, something field. Now it's all corporate sponsored. So do you think we're going to be seeing more corporate sponsorship and fewer quarter-page ads in the newspaper?
Yes.
Or
The beautiful thing about if you're a corporation and you're doing FedEx Field or
Right.
one of these, it's why people started using celebrities years ago. What you're doing is you're renting association. If you hire Tiger Woods and you pay $1 zillion and Tiger does your ads, you're getting a lot of Tiger's attributes. You're renting them to your product. Yeah. If you're a major league stadium and you're sponsored, your sponsoring company becomes a major league company.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of association, and that's what they're doing, as opposed to getting just someone holding something up and saying, buy this.
Our guest is Steve Hicks, Profiles Mississippi Radio. I'm Jack Chris. Steve has become an author after a very successful career in advertising, and we're going to talk about his books in just a moment, and I'm sure he will tell you where these books can be purchased, and you will naturally want to run right out and get some copies. But Steve, another thing I've noticed, and I'm a cultural conservative in that, and it's sad that I have to make this distinction. I'm not a prude, but I think certain things should be kept at certain places and not just become an exhibition. Or advertising has become increasingly crass, particularly advertising aimed at children. It just blows my mind. We mute the television when we're watching a program, if the family happens to be watching, during commercial breaks because of the crassness. When did that come into play? Are we going now for the shock value instead of the intelligent conveying of a message?
If we rotated things back 35 years right now, and we were having this conversation with your father, he'd be saying the same thing. Advertising is just going to the dogs and it's crass.
But it is different. I mean,
Well,
you can look at it and tell it is different. Yeah, he might be saying that. But he would be saying it because maybe the people in the commercials had long hair or the girls had on shorts. But now we're talking about things that are really pushing the envelope. Wouldn't you agree? I mean,
Oh yeah, but I think you're seeing it in programming too.
yeah. Well, yeah, you are.
So
Okay.
advertising is going to follow programming.
How long are the agencies? And we don't have to name any names because you and I know some players here, and they may be listening. But how long are agencies going to hang around? Because there's not many of them left.
Not long. I'll just name them. Godwin will be around for a long time. Godwin is kind of translated out of being an advertising agency into a public relations firm. There's some very talented people around. I think John Broderick and his group is extremely good.
Yeah.
And John will be around because he does good advertising, and there are still some clients that want good advertising. Years ago in the middle 80s, I was head of an agency called Sproul and Hicks, and one of our key accounts was Ross and Yerger. And Wirt Yerger Jr. got hold of me, and I said, I don't need any insurance. And he said, well, I need advertising. And he said, I don't care if the advertising sells insurance. I really don't care. I'm going to do fine selling insurance. I want my advertising to be so good that when I walk into the country club, people talk about it.
But no potential client would say that anymore, would they?
Publicly held companies do. You look at nationally, the stuff Dow.
But nobody here, probably.
Probably not.
Yeah.
A couple of the hospitals try. The banks have become non-players. The only bank I ever see on television anymore is Bank Corp out of Tupelo.
Tupelo, yeah.
I see nothing on Regions, an occasional green bicycle or something. I haven't seen Trustmark on TV for years. They may be there and I may not see them, but there's almost none. 30 years ago, banks were one of the mainstays. Back then, you also had McRae's, local retailer, gone. You had Jitney Jungle, local retailer,
Skytel,
gone.
LDDS, yeah.
And as businesses consolidate, the advertising goes out.